I don't think it's appropriate, doctor. But if your folks gave you this as if this was inherited, then everything your years of alcohol consumption. He once performed passed out while playing a guitar with his own blood. Smashed and intoxicated, behind the stage Ozzy Osbourne in hotel rooms, just to come back later and tidy up everything, as if nothing had ever occurred. Zakk Wylde is more than merely a guitarist, he's fierce, American heavy metal's roaring soul for more than 30 years. However, in his Zakk, in his 50s, enters the stage without holding a bottle of Jack. But, with a guitar, solemn eyes, and a pure heart, Demag Darrell used to own that. The A guy who once survived on the cries of a Marshall lamp now converses with God in private, each morning. He continues to dress in leather. Despite his wild beard, he slowed down as though completely cognizant of the cost of again going too far. Zakk Wylde didn't felt a scandal but were not absorbed by fame. He decided to pause, get up, and move ahead. And as a result, he's become a unique person in the metal community. A fiery spirit with self-control. A warrior who didn't turn on his fallen brothers. And a husband, a father, a friend without feigning friendship. There is more to this tale than a rock star who endured, but regarding a spirit that was once lost in strolling in the light after being in the dark. Not to receive praise, but to demonstrate that a riff isn't what makes you strong, it is false in remaining true to yourself. Early life. The birth date of Jeffrey Philip Vant was date, January 14, 1967. Bayonne, NJ, an industrial town with a working class where no one anticipated one of the most unique, the emergence of 1980s guitarists. His family members were Polish and led a modest lifestyle, not impoverished enough to go hungry, yet without the funds to purchase Marshall Black Sabbath tickets or amplifiers. His Jerome, the father, was raised in an orphanage. Something Zakk doesn't talk about much openly, but everyone is aware. His toughness and a reserved manner are derived from there. Zakk's early years were characterized by the kind of silent loneliness that haunts a child who is enamored with music yet lacks someone with whom to share it. At 8 years old, he grabbed his first guitar and handed it to him. Up. He came back at the age of 14, and this time he don't let go. Zakk started to drill. Instrument, as if it were the only remaining route. He played for 12 hours on some days, dozing off until his fingertips bled away in class. Notes occupied his thoughts, and strings that vibrate. While other children participated in sports, Zakk confined himself to playing the same solo over and over in the garage and over till he lost feeling in his hands. Not because he was coerced by someone, not because he aspired to stardom. He simply sensed he existed for a purpose when the guitar accompanied him. School was not very important. Zakk went through it out of obligation. However, it was he initially experienced what it was like to stand in front of a crowd, giving a performance at school performances with an unpolished guitar and nerve-filled eyes and disobedience. Those performances weren't successful. Zakk was taught to shout, but no one else did. Important factor. To get your voice heard, your instrument must make a strong statement. Following graduation from Jackson Memorial, Zakk works at a New Jersey high school. While having fun in a supermarket, Zeus is a local band. About this time, he started going by Zakk as his stage name. Wylde is a short, wild, and self-made name, the type that requires 2 questions because nobody is able to spell it. Zakk's there were no significant upheavals during childhood. However, each day brought one the truth. If no light is emanating from, he would construct his own fire outside, and the guitar from a dead thing progressively evolved into the characteristic that identified both Zakk's identity and future crazy. He was not taught how to become an artist, but through persistent reiteration and a fixation on each observe that he gained knowledge on how to live and never turn around. Early career. In New Jersey in the 1980s, Zakk Wylde wasn't a name that anyone took notice of. He performed in the little group Zeus, playing at neighborhood bars with an antique Gibson. Les Paul stood with his shoulder slung over it, riffing in the background behind the principal vocalist. No attention, no accolades. However, even in the absence of observers, Zakk played with all of his possessions. Even if only 3 inebriated men were present, I would continue to perform as an opening act for Madison Square Garden's Black Sabbath. It wasn't arrogance, he says, it was a mindset, the type that creates an otherwise hopeless musical voyage a turn. When Jakey Lee departed in 1987, a silent quest for Ozzy Osbourne's band started looking for a successor. Zakk's former guitar instructors advised him to mail Giving Sharon, Osbourne a demo tape. The recording just had a couple riffs, a brief scratchy voices and a solo. No production, lacking polish, yet sufficient in order to force Ozzy to halt. There's something about Zakk's playing style, Unadulterated, uncontrolled, yet accurate that Ozzy was unable to ignore it. Their initial, the encounter unfolded like a scene from a real-life rock film. I was trembling like Zakk remembered a leaf. Play, he said, and I was scarcely able to raise my hand. However, following only a few notes, AZ looked to He's the One, Sharon said within months ago. Zakk, the quiet blonde child, recently released by an unidentified band, became Ozzy Osbourne's new official guitarist, assuming the role once populated by icons such as Randy Rhoads and Lee Jakey. They released their debut album in 1988, No Rest for the Wicked United. What Zakk didn't bring imitation. It was the entirely unique style, razor-sharp riffs, lyrical but fiery solos, and most importantly, a deep regard for Ozzy's music. Within 2 years, Zakk went from a local guitarist with no name to one of the brightest fresh faces in metal from America. However, what made him unique wasn't merely a technique, it was feeling. Whenever Zakk stood next to Ozzy, didn't merely play, he was bleeding. He experienced it firsthand. He gave a performance as though he were giving his own goodbye. And after that, the career of Zakk Wylde was no longer a solitary toil in a chilly garage. It turned become a fable in which a young person from New Jersey was given the responsibility of transporting the last scream of Insymbol. Professional breakthrough. Zakk Wylde formally joined the ranks of Heavy, the best guitarists in metal, when he 1988 saw the release of No Rest for the Wicked, alongside Ozzy Osbourne. Back then, nobody recognized this fierce blonde-haired the musician would remain by the Prince of so long, Darkness. However, Zakk was the one. With his rough tone and vicious playing, and a spirit of sacrifice before compromise, who assisted Ozzy in navigating the challenging time after the passing of Jake's exit and Randy Rhoads. Lee. No More Tears, released in 1991, marked a significant turning point in Zakk's career. It was the first time he assumed a more significant position during the composition of the song, and his playing the guitar was no longer merely a substitute. It evolved into the new spirit of the group. The title track's solo, Noah guitar manifesto called More Tears, savage and eerie, like to the scream of a soul divided between hell and heaven. And Mama, I'm Coming Home is the sole song on the album. Ballad demonstrating that Zakk may be gentle, as a youngster yearning for his mom. He assisted and co-wrote that tune. One of the most emotionally charged performances by Ozzy, memorable songs from his career. Following, Zakk received an invitation to join Osmosis in 1995. Slash will be replaced by Guns N' Roses, but finally said no. He was unwilling to get away from Ozzy. That decision showed anything fundamental about Zakk's personality. Devotion to the man who had faith in him, even if it meant transferring greater notoriety. Zakk was aware, though, that if he didn't build, he would live forever with something of his own, in the shadow of another person. That's when BLS, or the Black Label Society, was born. Zakk established BLS in 1998, not to rival, but to establish a universe in which he could be himself, completely. The group represented unadulterated, untamed, snarling music, just similar to Zakk. Sonic, their debut album Brew, wasn't a huge commercial success, because it established the framework for a metal fans appreciate the cult-like BLS culture admirers across the globe with albums such as Eternal, Stronger Than Death, 2000, 1919 Mafia, 2005, Order of the Black, 2002, and 2010. Zakk was more than just both the singer and the guitarist. He was the spirit, the person who creates maps, the leader of the whole empire with the thrombi. Well, I answered. The memory-written tune in this River Darrell's Penny Bag turned into an unspoken anthem about grief and fraternity within the metal scene. This belongs to Zakk. Special present. In spite of his combative, he never lacked emotional depth in his music. In songs such as Spoken the Wheel or Dead as Yesterday, and you sense the essence of a man who has endured hardships with only music could mend the wounds. Zakk didn't end at BLS. In 2014, he introduced the band Zakk Sabbath is committed to Black Sabbath classics are being reinterpreted in his own fashion sense. This wasn't merely a homage performance. Zakk used it as a means of respecting his heritage and getting closer to a new Sabbath sound generation. Then in 2022, an astounding the metal world was rocked by the announcement. Zakk Wylde was selected to replace Dimmiag. Pantera's reunion lineup includes Darrell, alongside Phil, Anthrax, and Charlie Bonante, Rex Brown, and Anelmo. This was nothing new. Panta, but an homage in real life where Zakk played Dime's original guitar with Dime's seasoned tech Grady Champion joining the team to maintain the original audio. For Zakk, it wasn't a high point in my career, it was a sacred obligation. He never made an effort to be damaged. All he wanted to do was get by, the legacy of his friend. Zakk Wylde is not having an album at the top of the Billboard charts. He avoids bombarding the radio with hit singles, but he's incredibly devoted to After. From motorcyclists, veterans, of combat, and youthful loners to underground rockers who identify with BLS's rough riffs, he did not establish a fleeting fad. He constructed a house and an impregnable stronghold for the missing. Additionally, in a universe where Zakk Wylde, everything is interchangeable, stays true to himself, not a not to be replaced by another. A warrior, a guitar-playing storyteller, and in a sense a soul permanently united with metal, nobody else is able to duplicate. Private life. When individuals consider Zakk Wylde, who has a wild beard, hefty sledgehammer, torn leather vests, guitars, a fierce growl, and a few consider what is underneath that intimidating appearance. A man lies of a single, genuine love. In the rock industry and roll, where unions frequently end, Zakk Wylde smashed, guitars on stage, is the uncommon exception. He wed his Barbara Wylde, high school sweetheart, and has always been by her side. Since. In the 8th grade, Zakk met Barbara. Grade. Early in life, when he was still performing in shabby rehearsal spaces, she was the one all around New Jersey, silently in the background, managing logistics, water delivery, and counting the little gig money, never requesting credit. She didn't develop feelings for a rock star. She fell in love with a young A guitar and a promise, that's all. I'll do my best until the end. Zakk also continued to that pledge, not with celebrity but with steadfast devotion. They were wed in their late 80s and have 4 kids, collectively. Jesse John Michael, Haley Ray, Michael Rhodes, Sabbath, and Hrix Halen Page. Just, their names demonstrate how Zakk has a tremendous passion for music. Everyone one is an homage to the legends he admires. Randy, Eddie Van Halen, and Jimi Hendrix Rhodes as Jimmy Page and Tony Iommi. However, Zakk doesn't view his family as a monument to idols. It is the only location he can visit. Go home and take off his combat gear. Barbara is not merely a wife. She's his supervisor, his traveling partner on each tour, and the initial observer of his health drastically deteriorated in 2009. When Zakk's blood suddenly started to flow, his legs and lungs had clots, and it was she who hurried him to the medical facility. Physicians advised that if he kept drinking, he might pass away. Zakk used to drink till he passed out. Who considered Jack Daniels to be the only disinfectant, completely give up alcohol. Following that worry, the choice was far from simple, yet vitally important for music, for himself, for his family. Given that Zakk has since changed to a healthier lifestyle, eating healthily and lifting weightlifting, reading and even meditation the Bible each morning, he continues to play. Metal, still wearing black clothing, still on stage. It roars. However, backstage you may discover him sitting quietly with his eyes closed, contacting his wife or praying. No extramarital affair rumors. No short-lived rock star relationships. Prior to model Susie was briefly dated by Barbara and Zakk Owens, but severed all connections later. In more than 3 decades, his name has never had a family attachment scandal. In a field where there are many lost souls, Zakk decided to remain motionless and firmly grasp the hand that has been with him from the starting. I'm a devoted New Yorker. Zakk used to quip, I'm a Yankees fan. However, I'm more devoted to my spouse than to my team. Under the comedy, there's a rare philosophy of life. A man is able to yell into a sea of unfamiliar people, but when he arrives, he still needs a place to sleep quietly at home, put his guitar down and lean his head on the shoulder of his greatest confidant. Zakk Wylde believes that location has never altered influence and legacy. Zakk Wylde didn't make his impression only by screaming pinch, snarling riffs, melodies that reverberated in the darkness, or his massive bodies sagged following each performance over a guitar. He departed, behind something more profound. The two. Picture of a metal fighter who lives completely for fame out of dedication, rather than following trends to music and its inhabitants. In the realm of guitar, Zakk Wylde is an recognizable symbol. He's not the most technically proficient musician, but innovative pioneer. Yet few are able to create a guitar tone that is so unique, the kind that enables you to identify him by only one note. The noise he produced, untamed, yet profound, turned into a distinctive look that had an impacted generations, from groove to genres southern rock to modern, metal to doom heavy. Zakk is also among the uncommon artists who are widely admired around the often split metal scene. Australian fans of Black Sabbath, Pantera, and BLS Deards, or loyalists. They might not everyone is in agreement, but they share one opinion. A nod, a shrug, and a simply put, Zakk is the best as he's never betrayed anybody. More profoundly, it's Zakk's lifestyle which characterizes his heritage. In a sector where exits are common, tactics, reorienting loyalties, and artists who are prepared to part up everything for notice, Zakk persevered, even when wandering, by yourself or giving up drinking, or living differently from the environment around him. He is evidence that you may be both a fierce artist and a kind spouse, a kind parent, and a devoted companion who remains there when things become difficult. And Zakk, maybe. The biggest legacy of Wylde is not found in albums such as Mafia, No, More Tears, or however Doom Crew Inker's vital presence on the stage, where in addition to playing the guitar, he sending a message. That metal isn't simply sound, it's bravery, loyalty, and unwavering faith. What constitutes a genuine legend of metal? For Zakk Wylde, the response. It may be this. He never made an effort to become one. He only remained loyal to himself, and that was sufficient. Current circumstances. Despite being 58 now, Zakk Wylde, age 18, exhibits no symptoms of reducing speed. Actually, in 2024 and 2025, having witnessed him at what may be his most energetic and invigorated state after turning 50. Honoring, rather than merely performing the traditions he was raised with, battled alongside, and is still carrying ahead. Zakk's focal point. The continuing Panta is the current activity, tour. A huge worldwide homage started in 2022 to commemorate the late members Vinnie Paul and Dimig Darrell. By 2025, Zakk and Pantera are still make this tour available in North America. Largest stages from Philadelphia and Tampa to Denver and Santa Clara. With Taking Dimebag's real guitar, Zakk is more than just a musician. He's bringing back memories. Admirers who once lamented Panta's passing and now stand in front of the stage, crying in order to be seen that is authentic but feel strange, sincere, and deserving. Meanwhile, additionally, Zakk is a vital performer on the Discover the 2025 Hendrix Tour, a worldwide commemoration of one of his Jimmy Y childhood heroes from March to April 2025, Hendrix throughout dozens of U.S. cities and Canada. Guitar legends are on the tour, like Eric Johnson, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Marcus King as well. Zakk, however, has been one among the most talked about performances because of his own style, which does not simply technique, but raw rock and roll your soul. Zakk, meanwhile, continues to be the Zakk Sabbath frontman, his homage Black Sabbath band, late in 2024, and they went on a U.S. tour in early 2025 aboard the Alongside the King of the Monster circuit tribute groups, such as the Iron and Zoso Young Women. The beginning of 2025, Zakk Sabbath proceeded to go around Europe, playing from Manchester to Berlin, famous covers such as Iron Man, NIB, and as a memorial to Tony Iommi, War Pigs. Zakk respectfully addresses the father of heavy metal. Furthermore, Zakk released Greatest, a digital album, Zakk Sabbath's Rifts compilation of popular covers. The record has been warmly welcomed by both ardent fans, but also as a significant event that more than 30 years of Zakk maintaining the Sabbath flame is alive. Possibly the most Zakk's 2025 emotional moment will be involvement in the Black Sabbath's final performance on July 5, 2025 in Birmingham's Villa Park. This momentous performance signifies the complete reunion between Tony Iommi, Ozzy Osbourne, Bill Ward, and Geezer Butler after over 20 years. Zakk doesn't have a job. Sabbath member. But his request to demonstrate by performing on this last night. How much he is a part of the band's spiritual heritage. In his spare time, Zakk stays in his California house, along with Barbara, his wife, and their 4 kids. He still stays away from short-resist temptation and keeps a healthy way of life following alcohol cessation in 2009. Making appearances on talk shows, podcasts, as well as behind-the-scenes videos, he consistently radiates friendliness and laughter, but also the focus and rigor of a genuine melodic warrior. Zakk Wylde has not made any announcements, retirement, and maybe he won't, because even in the absence of light, he will continue to play for Australia, for metal enthusiasts Dimebag, for Sabbath globally, as well as for himself, the A-man whose passion for music never faded. How about you? If you were able to observe a Zakk Wylde show at the moment, which song would you want to listen to? Distribute your opinions in the space provided below, and remember to sign up for the channel. For more bloody real-life tales, perspiration, and songs similar to what you've just observed. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you in the following video. Go for it.